Good day, fellow collectors. My name is Brad of Koufax Cardboard, and today I am getting started on the project that I really was motivated to get on YouTube in order to do. I'm calling it, I don't know if this is a working title, but I'm calling it the Season in a Set project. And what I'm going to be doing is going through the 1965 Topps set and sort of also chronicling the 1965 Major League Baseball season using the set as sort of a guide to doing that. I'm working on collecting the set. I'm over 50% of the way there in terms of total cards, and there's 598 cards in the set, and I've got more than 300. But in terms of value, I think I'm more like a quarter or a third of the way there. I don't have any of the big four, which are the Carlton rookie, as well as the Mantle, Mays, and Aaron. So I've got a long way to go, but I'm also off to a decent start. I'm going to be going through each card. My goal is to show the front and the reverse of all 598 cards over the course of 52 episodes. I've got them all mapped out, and I'm going to talk about each card and the players depicted on each card. I'm looking forward to doing this. I'm not aware of any content quite along these lines on YouTube, so I certainly could be missing it. I'm not by any stretch a long-term viewer of the content on YouTube, so it could be that it exists and I just don't know about it, but I'm not aware that it exists, and maybe that's because there's not going to be a lot of interest in it. I hope there is interest in it. I for one, I really have enjoyed preparing this project and starting this project because I really like looking at and learning about some of the players that aren't household names. If there's 598 cards in the 1965 Topps set, probably 400 or 450 of those players were role players or bench players or didn't even play in the 1965 season, or for one reason or another are not really remembered very much today here in 2025. And so I look forward to learning about some of those players, learning about all of those players really, and imparting some of that knowledge to you all, and I guess paying tribute to some of these players that certainly don't get a lot of attention or memory. Here we are 60 years later. I think part of the reason I do this is when I was a player, back when I was a kid, I played into high school, not even all the way through high school, but when I was a kid, I dreamed, like all of us probably, or many of us, dreamed about being in the major leagues. But for whatever reason, I never really dreamed about being a star player in the major leagues. My dreams sort of maxed out at being a role player or a relief pitcher or something like that, and that would have been enough for me. And that's part of the reason I think that I enjoy collecting those same types of players that I dreamed of being the less than marquee, less than all-star, less than Hall of Fame players that make up the bulk of a set like 1965. And so another one of my goals in this is to have people on to collaborate with others on this. I have some tentative plans to bring on a guest who collected the 1965 set in 1965 and who finished it I think in like 1980. But I don't have any other plans. So if you are interested in being a part of this project, if you're a player collector and want to get on when that player's card in the 1965 set is covered, if you have memories of watching these games in 1965 or going to any of these games in 1965, that would be really interesting. Or if you had a father or an uncle who talked about the 1965 season, I think that would be really fun to have you on and talk through some of that. My reaching for the stars goal is to have somebody who played in 1965 on this project. Probably, I certainly haven't run any numbers or kept track, but I'm guessing about 75% of the players that played in 1965 have passed away. So the pool is dwindling, but Carl Yastrzemski, if you're out there and want to jump on this project with me, I'd be absolutely thrilled to have you. Or if anybody else knows anybody, any of the players in the 1965 set, even if they don't quite rise to the level of Carl Yastrzemski, I'd be very, very interested to be introduced to them and see if they want to participate. With that, I'll start with the first 12 cards of the set. The first 12 cards of the 1965 set are the league leader cards. So in terms of like comparing them or placing them in the context of the 1965 season, these 12 cards kind of function as spring training. You know, you're looking at what happened in 1964 and imagining how it might translate into 1965. I don't have all the first 12 cards yet. I think I've got 7 of them. I contemplated waiting until I had all of the cards for a particular episode before filming that episode, but what I concluded was that would cause me to either make poor purchases on the cards, you know, undervalued purchases, or I would just wait a very long time to get started on the project. And so I'm not doing that. So for the cards that I don't have, I'll be showing screenshots of available cards and of that type that are in the type of condition that I'd be interested in, but talk through maybe why I don't have them already, and then in the future I'll kind of update you all on the progress that I'm making for those cards that have already been covered in the series. And so with that said, the very first card in the set is the 1965 Topps AL Batting Leaders card. And if you watched a previous episode of Connoisseurs of Cardboard, you'll know that I've actually got 3 copies of this card. I won't go into those details because it's already covered in a previous set, or a previous submission. But I've got 3 copies of this card: an 2 in SGC and 1 in PSA. Here's the PSA version, and here is the last SGC version. I asked for votes on which one you all like the most, and I'm going to crowdsource those votes and keep the one that you guys think is the best. But so far I've only gotten 1 vote, so please head back or vote here or head back to that episode and help me decide which one of these to keep. Okay, so a little bit about this card. One of the things that I find interesting is they really listed a lot of players on the back of this card. There's 50 players listed on the back of this card, with the league leading batting average. Now, if you crunch the numbers, there were 10 National League teams, or American League teams and National League teams, but we're on the American League card. There were 10 American League teams and only 80 position players starting per day. So 50 of the 80 starters on any given day are listed on these cards. Now, in order to qualify for the batting title, you had to have 3.1 plate appearances per team game. And so in 1964, only 52 American League players qualified for the batting title. Some non-qualifying batters are listed here. The requirement to be listed on a Topps card appears to be 400 at-bats, which is something like 150 less than necessary to qualify for the batting title. The most prominently featured individual on the card is Tony Oliva. He and his .323 batting average led the league. In addition to leading the league in batting average, he led in runs with 109, hits with 217, and doubles with 43. He was really the only viable candidate for Rookie of the Year in 1964, and he would have won unanimously, except that Wally Bunker got 1 vote. So some writer had a real affinity for Wally Bunker, and Wally Bunker kept Tony Oliva from getting a unanimous Rookie of the Year. Oliva was 4th in the MVP voting behind the 2 others featured on this card. Brooks Robinson won the award, the MVP, in 1964, and Elston Howard finished 3rd. Robinson's .317 batting average was by far the best of his career. He was known mostly more so for his fielding. Good hitter, not a great hitter, and a really, really good fielder. All 50 players listed on this card have a card in the 1965 set. The Boston Red Sox actually led the American League in batting in 1964 with a 258 average, 5 points higher than the next best Detroit Tigers and New York Yankees. However, despite their league-leading average, the Red Sox were 5th in runs scored, and they gave up a bunch of runs, and so finished 72 and 90, and in 8th place in the American League in 1964. Moving on to card number 2, that is one that I do not have yet, and so pull it up on the screen here. Card number 2. 1964 National League batting leaders. In terms of available cards, this one goes for a pretty good price because in PSA 6, because it's got both Clemente and Aaron on it. There's a couple good examples on eBay right now. This is one of them. Both of these good examples that I've got my eye on are set at $95. Buy it now. The VCP average on these cards is around 75, so that $95 price point without an option to make an offer is a little bit high, and actually it looks like I have overstated the average price. The average price is $63.58, so I should be able to, hopefully at some point soon, pick this up at less than that $95 price point. Not that both of the examples on eBay right now are really strong examples, and so I'm not like offended by the $95 buy it now price, but it's still probably more than I'm going to be willing to pay at this point. Here's the back of the card, and just a little bit more about the card. 1964 was the second of 4 batting crowns for Roberto Clemente, who won it 7 seasons between. He won it 4 out of 7 seasons between 1961 and 1967. At .339, it was only his 6th best batting average of his career. He had higher averages between 69 and 71, but did not win the batting titles. Rico Cardi came in second and won the batting title in 1970, actually. So not exactly a household name, but somebody who batted pretty high throughout his career. He batted above 300 8 times in a 15-year career. And Hank Aaron's 328 was 3rd best of his career and one of 14 seasons over 300. I was, I guess, a little surprised to learn that. Being known, obviously, in large part as the home run king. He just hit the ball so hard that it found grass more often than for most players. So 14 seasons above 300 for Hank Aaron. Other notables on this card include Lou Brock, whose .315 average was the highest of his career, and included a .348 batting average in 464 plate appearances after being traded to the St. Louis Cardinals by the Cubs mid-season. One of the largely considered one of the worst trades in the history of baseball by the Cubs. Pete Rose at .269, on the other hand, had the lowest batting average of his career until the mid-1980s when he was well into his 40s. And a last interesting nugget on this card is Al Spangler's name is spelled wrong. It's spelled Spankler. So I'm imagining some like 23-year-old intern at Topps in 1964 or 1965 putting the back of this card together and thinking that it would be real humorous to spell Spangler as Spankler. As a league, the National League batted .254 in 1964. That was 7 points higher than the American League, so they were finding grass more often than their American League counterparts. 3 teams: the Milwaukee Braves at .272, the St. Louis Cardinals at .272, and the Pittsburgh Pirates at .264 had higher averages than the American League leading Boston Red Sox. All right, next card, and that's number 3, the American League home run leaders, right here. I think on card number 1, I forgot to open it up and give you guys a better view of this. This is the first card that features Mickey Mantle, and also features Hall of Famer Harmon Killebrew and Boog Powell, who's he had a case for the Hall of Fame. He probably won't ever get in at this point, but real strong player, Bob Veale. Get the reverse here. So this is, again, the first card featuring Mantle and one of two featuring Mantle in these first 12. It's this, along with number 5, are the most, I guess because Mantle's on it, the most sought after of the first 12 cards. This is a good example of, I don't love this card as a PSA 6. The corners are not great. I don't know if you can see too well down there in the bottom right or the bottom left. The corners are not great, but it's kind of an example of, in collecting this set, I've got to be a little bit flexible on my standards for condition, or I'll just never finish this set. So I picked this up at a pretty good price. Like I said, it's not the most beautiful. If I were to get an opportunity to buy a better 6 or 6.5 or even 7 of this card, I might swap it out, but I'm real happy to have it because it's one of the difficult ones. A little bit more on this. Harmon Killebrew here in the prime of his career led the American League with 49 home runs. That was the highest total of his career. He tied it in 1969. He led the league in home runs 6 times and hit 573 in his career. That was 5th all-time when he retired in 1975 and 12th as of 2024, before the 2024 season. I don't think anybody eclipsed it in 2024, but don't quote me on that. Boog Powell's 39 were also the most of his career, and Mickey Mantle's 35 were the last time he hit 9. Last of 9 times he hit 30 or more home runs. In the American League, batters hit 1,551 home runs in 1964, a number that dropped to 1,370 in 1965 and continued dropping until 1969 when the 2 expansion teams were added. As for the Grand Slams, which you can see on the back of the card, Grand Slams are also listed. 1964 was the first time in the American League that 2 players tied for the most in the season with 3 or more. So you can see that that's Dick Stewart and Pete Ward both hit 3 Grand Slams during the season. 29 Grand Slams were hit during the regular season in the American League, though only 28 are listed on this card. They're listed alphabetically, and so Don Zimmer's Grand Slam that he hit this year did not fit on the card. Joe Pepitone's Grand Slam during the regular season was listed, but does not include the one he hit in the 1964 World Series in Game 6. Joe Adcock is listed on this card, but does not have a card in the 1965 set. He played in both 1965 and 1966. Manny Jimenez and Jerry McNertney both hit Grand Slams in 1964, and so are listed on this card, but do not have cards in the 1965 set either. All right, so that is card number 3. Moving on to card number 4. This is the 1964 home run leaders. It includes multiple Hall of Famers. In fact, three Hall of Famers. You can see that this is in quite poor condition. This card will not ultimately be in my set that I complete. I picked this card up as part of 124 other cards that I bought at 50 cents per card. So got the card, but it will get swapped out. Willie Mays with his 47 home runs, hit by far the most in the National League in 1964. He's also inaccurately, but kind of predicting the future here, he's inaccurately listed as a member of the New York Mets. Don't know if that mistake was thinking that the Giants were still in New York because they had been in San Francisco for like 7 years at this point, or what that mistake is all about. He's listed accurately on other cards in the first 12 as being in San Francisco. Also featured on the card is Billy Williams, whose 33 home runs was one of 5 times he eclipsed 30 in his career. Johnny Callison's 31 were his most to date. Cepeda's 31 were one of 5 times he broke the 30 mark, and Jim Hart at 31 home runs has the fewest career home runs of anyone on this card at 170. Every Grand Slam hit during the regular season in the National League is on the card, except Ken Boyer's 3rd Grand Slam of the season, which came in Game 4 of the World Series, is is not reflected. His sixth inning grand slam off Al Downing counted for all of the Cardinals' runs in Game 6 and led to their 4-3 win to even the series at 3 games apiece, which they would go on to win over the Yankees. The 1964 World Series is the only time in World Series history, both before and since, that both teams hit grand slams. The 1956 New York Yankees hit 2 themselves, Yogi Berra and Bill Skowron, and the 1987 Minnesota Twins hit 2, Dan Gladden and Kent Herbeck. But no other World Series has featured grand slams by both teams. That's card number 4. Card number 5 is another one that I don't have, so we'll pull it up here. It is the second card that features Mickey Mantle, so one of the more difficult cards of the first 12. Right now, it is available on eBay at, this card is available on eBay at at a $100 price point with a best offer option. Don't love the card. It's off center both left to right and top to bottom. And the VCP average on the card is, I believe this one is the $75 one. No, for some reason I've got $75 in my mind, but this one is averages close to 70. So at $100 and a copy that is not my favorite, I'm definitely not going to pull the trigger on that. So I'm going to have to wait a little while to see if I can get this soon at a better price point. But a little bit more about this card. These are the American League RBI leaders. Brooks Robinson features again. He had a league-leading 118 RBIs in 1964. It was the most of his career. And even more impressive, I think, than that is that the Baltimore Orioles were 6th in the league in runs scored. So he had the most RBIs for a team that was right around average in terms of scoring runs. He batted in the 4th and 5th spots most of the year, and he factored in 172 of the Orioles' 679 runs, so that's 25.3%. When I say factored in them, he either batted them in or he scored them, and so I'm adding the runs plus the RBIs and subtracting home runs, since a home run counts as both an RBI and a run. So he factored in 25.3% of the Baltimore Orioles runs, which was I think tops in the American League, so that that makes sense that he was the MVP. For comparison, Mickey Mantle and Elston Howard, who were the 2nd and 3rd place MVP vote getters, factored in 23% and 18.1% of the New York Yankees runs, and 4th place Tony Oliva, he was 4th place for the MVP, but he led the league in runs scored. He factored in 23.2% of the Minnesota Twins runs. Dick Stewart followed up his league-leading 118 RBIs in 1963 with 114 in 1964. Harmon Killebrew's 111 were not great by his standards, only the 7th most of his career. And some might be surprised to learn that Mantle's 111 RBIs were just the 4th and the last time he hit triple digits in that category. Of course, he excelled in a lot of categories, but RBIs were not necessarily one that were at the top of the list of what he was best at. I misspoke earlier. Jim Fragosi's, we'll hit the back of this card here. Jim Fragosi's 72 RBIs for the Los Angeles Angels, that was the lowest team leading mark in the American League, but it still led the league in terms of factored in run percentage at 25.7%, so he was more than 2% better than Brooks Robinson. Of 142 American League players with at least 100 plate appearances in 1964, Mantle, though, actually led in RBIs per plate appearance with .1957. So when he did come to bat, he was more likely than anyone else to get an RBI. So that's card number 5. Card number 6. RBI leaders. This card features Ken Boyer. As in the American League, the National League RBI king Ken Boyer also won the MVP. He is one of just two players that I'm aware of that has a 60-plus WAR and an MVP, but is not in the Hall of Fame. The other is Keith Hernandez. I actually ran across this stat recently when I picked up the Keith Hernandez card, and I kind of crowdsourced the issue with Net54. They pointed out that Ken Boyer also fits that criteria, but I'm not aware of anyone else that fits that criteria. Willie Mays and Ron Santo were the only players to score higher than Boyer in terms of factoring in runs at 28.2% and 27.4%. Boyer came in at 27.3%. So we got some players in the National League that played a larger role in their team's runs than anyone in the American League. Ron Santo's 114 RBIs were his most to date. He eclipsed it only once in 1969 with 123. As with the National League batting leaders and home run leaders cards, there are 7 Hall of Famers listed in the first 12, in the top 12 of the back of this card. So a lot of star power in the National League at this time. With 66 RBIs, Jerry Lynch is the first player on this card not to appear on either the batting or the home run leaders list. Lynch's home run totals at 16 weren't high enough, and he didn't qualify for the batting leaders card because he had considerably less than 400 at-bats. Of 143 players with 100 or more plate appearances, which really close, interestingly, to the American League's 142 players with 100 or more plate appearances, Lynch actually had the most RBIs per plate appearance in the National League and in the majors at .2006. Willie Stargell was next at .1761, and Ken Boyer, the RBI king, was 5th at .1683. Next card up is the first card to feature a White Sox player, Joel Horland. So this we move from batting to pitching, and this is the AL ERA leaders card featuring Dean Chance and Joel Horland. In 1964, Dean Chance led the Los Angeles Angels pitching staff, which was nearly the best in the American League. He gave up the second fewest earned runs, 469, and had the second lowest ERA at 2.91, and gave up the fewest home runs with an even 100. Chance led the league in every major statistic, including ERA, 1.65, wins, 20, complete games, 15, shutouts, 11, innings pitched, 278.1, and ERA plus at an even 200. His dominance earned him the Cy Young and one of 2 All-Star appearances in his career. Joel Horland was the best pitcher on the best pitching core in the American League. His ERA on this card, however, is wrong. It's listed at 1.92, when in fact it was 1.88. The statistic is accurately reflected on his card, which at number 480 in the set was printed much later as part of the 6th series. At least 10 other ERAs listed on this card are wrong by between .01 and .06. So I'm thinking that at some point after this card was printed, somebody in baseball went back and reassessed the 1964 statistics, maybe counted a few more errors or a few less errors, and the ERAs changed. Portland's Chicago White Sox led the American League with a 2.72 ERA in 1964. All 4 of its pitchers who started more than 30 games, which were Horland, Gary Peters, Juan Pizarro, and John Buzzhart, had ERAs under 3.00. However, the Angels and the White Sox were at 7th and 8th, respectively, in strikeouts, which I think probably reflects a little bit of how the game has changed, see here, 60 years later. The inclusion of pitchers with more than 75 innings pitched but less than 162 reflects the need for a different standard by which to judge relief pitchers. And finally, Dick Hall is the only player listed on this card who does not have a card in the 1965 top set. I was unable to figure out why he's missing a card. He's missing a card he played like 15 seasons, 16 seasons, but he's missing a card in 5 top sets, so he must have had I'm thinking he probably had some sort of contractual dispute. That's card number 7. Card number 8, I have not yet picked up, so I'll throw it here. And that's the 1965 National League ERA leaders, featuring Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale. 1964 was the only season. Well, let's cover the cards first. This one is available on eBay. It's listed at $63, and I put in a $53 offer, and it was rejected. The VCP average is $58, and so I will keep an eye on this one. It's well centered. It's a good looking card, and so I think it's possible that I could pull the trigger on this one at some point, but I haven't yet. That offer at 53 was rejected, and so I'm gonna let it simmer a little bit, see if I can find any other copies, or maybe return to this one. But 1964 was the only season in the 1960s that the top two National League pitchers for ERA were on the same team. Interestingly, it happened like 4 times in the 1960s in the American League, 3 times for the White Sox and once for the Cleveland Indians. Maybe that Koufax and Drysdale developed a bond after their joint holdout, which made them the highest paid players in the major leagues in 1966. The two are credited with laying some of the critical groundwork with that holdout, some of the critical groundwork for the adoption of free agency in American professional sports in 1974. Jim Catfish Hunter, whose rookie card is part of the 1965 set, was baseball's first free agent. Although Drysdale's career included league-leading seasons in many categories, and he won the Cy Young in 1962, he never led the league in ERA. Sandy Koufax, on the other hand, his 1.74 ERA in 1964 was just a touch higher than his best in 1966 at .173. He also led the league in winning percentage at 19.5. He was a .792 winning percentage, shutouts 7, ERA plus 186, WHIP .928, and strikeouts per 9 innings at an even 9, so 1 strikeout per inning. A master of control, Koufax's 4.21 strikeouts per walk in 1964 was only the 3rd best in his career. He cleared 5.00 twice in 1963 and in 1965. On the back of the card, you'll see that Chris Short ranks 3rd in ERA in 1964, but he does not have a card in the 1965 Topps set. Despite entering the major leagues in 1959 and pitching in 14 different seasons for the Philadelphia Phillies, plus 1 hanger-on season with the Milwaukee Brewers, Short did not have a contract with Topps until the 1967 season. All right, moving on to card number 9. The AL pitching leaders, which is to say AL wins leaders is what this card really means. It's another card featuring now 2 White Sox players, Gary Peters, and Juan Pizarro. But Dean Chance features prominently again. With 20 wins, he was the only player to lead the league in 2 of the statistical categories featured on these first 12 cards. With 208 strikeouts, he was also the only player to appear on the front of all 3 cards. Chance's 20 wins were probably more impressive than Gary Peters, who also had 20 wins, as Chance played for the 82 and 80 Los Angeles Angels, while Peters played for the 98 and 64 Chicago White Sox. Chance's 9.4 WAR compared to Peters' 4.2 obviously favors Chance as well, and the Cy Young voters agreed, awarding it to Chance almost unanimously in the pre-1967 era when there was only 1 Cy Young Award winner. Tied for 10th with 16 wins. We'll get on to the back here. With 16 wins, Dick Radatz is omitted from the American League ERA leaders card, and that appears to have been an oversight. With 157 innings pitched and 16 wins, a Topps editor may have assumed he was a starter and not qualified for the 162 innings list or the 75 innings list for those who pitched primarily in relief. But Radatz actually did pitch in relief. He finished a league-leading 67 games. He he saved 29, and he accumulated a 6.0 WAR to earn 9th place MVP votes. So I'm guessing that a Topps editor saw those 16 wins and thought he was a starter, and so didn't include him on the 162 innings list, not realizing that in fact he just pitched a lot as a reliever and should have qualified for the 75 inning list. There are 4 Hall of Famers listed on this card: Whitey Ford, Jim Cott, Robin Roberts, and Hoyt Wilhelm. The same 4 are listed on the American League ERA leaders and strikeout leaders cards, and they are the fewest Hall of Famers on these first 12 cards, reflecting the era's lack of top-end pitching talent in the American League. Cott's name is spelled incorrectly as Cat, K-A-T-T, on this card. It is correct on the ERA and strikeouts leaders cards, and there is an error version on his actual card in the set with, I think, it's number 62. It's definitely in the 60s. So there's both versions on his card in the set. Card number 10, I do not have, but it is the 1965 National League Pitching Leaders card. This one, it does feature Hall of Famer Juan Marichal, but in a PSA 6, the VCP average on it is only 24.92. There's one available on eBay at $35. This one that you're seeing, even in the PSA 7 average value is $24.92. So a very affordable card in a pretty decent grade. The one you're looking at is available for $35. Probably not going to pull the trigger at $35, but I'm going to keep an eye on it because it is a nice example. Larry Jackson's league-leading 24 wins was of course impressive, but seemingly a statistical anomaly. His 3.14 ERA was good, but only good enough for 13th in the National League, and he played for a below-average 76 and 86 Chicago Cubs team. It seems like he got more than his fair share of run support, but to his credit, he was effective in close games. 18 of his 24 wins came by 3 runs or less, and 6 were by exactly 1 run. Juan Marichal's second-best 21 wins seems to have been supported by the quality of his pitching. His 269 innings were by far the most on the Giants staff, and his 2.48 ERA was the lowest of his teammates of any teammate who had more than 50 innings pitched. His 22 complete games led the league, and his win total was tied for the 5th best of his career. He won 25 or more games 3 times in his career. Ray Sadecki's win total, he's the last one listed on this card, on the other hand, seems like it was buoyed by some of the same luck that Jackson got with the Cubs. He pitched for the much better and pennant-winning St. Louis Cardinals, but his 3.68 and 1.327 WHIP, 3.68 ERA and 1.327 WHIP were the highest of any Cardinals pitcher with more than 10 starts. So despite getting all the wins, he was not, by other metrics, probably not one of the best pitchers, even on that staff. All right. Card number 11. This one, kind of like card number 4, I have this card, but it's in very low condition, so will certainly be swapped out here at some point in the future. I got it as part of 124 other cards at 50 cents per card. This is the American League Strikeout Leaders card with 217 strikeouts. Al Downing's league-leading total was the lowest, actually, for an American League leader until Len Barker's 187 led the league in 1980. And if I recall correctly, that's actually a strike-shortened season in 1980, so an asterisk by that as well. So not a lot of strikeouts in the American League in 1964. Downing also led the league in walks with 120. His 8.0 strikeouts per 9 innings was second among qualified pitchers, those with at least 162 innings. And McDowell was tops in the league with 9.2. That's Sam McDowell. Dick Radatz was the only pitcher with more than 13 innings pitched to reach double digits in strikeouts per 9. He had 170 strikeouts in 157 innings pitched, which is at 10.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. On the back of the card, that reminds me, I don't know that I showed the back of the card number 9. So since my goal is to show the front and back of every single card in the 598 card series, so there's the back of card number 9. On the back of card number 11, or was it card number 10 that I didn't show the back of? Oh, there's the back of number 10, just in case I missed it. Okay, back of card number 11. Phil Regan, with 91 strikeouts in 1964, is the first player on this card not to appear on the American League ERA or pitching leaders cards. His 5 wins did not make the cut for the pitching leaders cards, and his 5.03 on ERA on the season actually was quote-unquote low enough to make the ERA leaders cards, but his 146.2 innings did not qualify him for the list on that card. All right, and finally, card number 12. I don't have this one in my possession yet, but I am happy to report that I have actually purchased this version as of last night. So I do own this card that you're seeing on the screen. I just haven't gotten it shipped to me yet. This card in a PSA 6 on average goes for around $25. I put in an offer at $20 and it was accepted, so thrilled about that. One thing that I'll stop here to talk about is for buyers and sellers, when you're looking at cards, if the slab card, particularly in PSA holders, is lit from the side, it's going to make one of those borders look narrower than it is. So in this case, the light is coming in from the left side of the card, and there's a shadow cast on the left border, which actually makes the border on the left side look even narrower than it really is. I think when this card gets to me, it's going to look a little bit better than it looks like in this photo. Obviously, it's also off-center, top to bottom. That one doesn't bother me as much. If I'm able to pick up a card that is well centered left to right, but off-center, top to bottom, that doesn't bother me very much. So thrilled to have picked up this card. Like his American League counterpart, Bob Veale led the National League in both strikeouts and walks with he had 124 walks in 1964. It was the only season of his 13 career he led the league in strikeouts, but one of 4 that he led it in walks. He had a career strikeout to walk ratio of 1.98, and he was difficult to hit. Although he walked a lot, he was difficult to hit hard because, and that bears out in leading the league in fewest home runs allowed per 9 innings 3 times, including in 1964. Veale went 18-12 for the 80 and 82 Pittsburgh Pirates and was, by most measures, the team's best pitcher of the season. His career record is 169 and 91 in a 3.07 ERA for the Pirates, which so not a household name, but a strong case could be made that he was the franchise's best pitcher of the 1960s. Strikeouts were on the rise in the 1960s. 3 pitchers on the back of this card. Let's get to the back. 3 pitchers. Sandy Koufax, Jim Maloney, and Don Drysdale had struck out more than Veale's 250 in 1963, but 1964 was the first time in the post-war era that 7 National League pitchers struck out 200 batters or more. There were 9,256 strikeouts in the National League in 1964, and that was actually the second lowest total of the 10-team era between 1962 and 1968. And with that, we have covered the first 12 cards of the 1965 set. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave a comment. If you didn't, leave a suggestion. I'm hoping that this does get some traction, that people are interested in watching this content, but I realize that it's kind of in the weeds. It's kind of I don't know. Maybe some people are going to find it mundane. I hope that at least some people find it interesting. I certainly have found it interesting, and I will continue to do it if there's even at least a little bit of interest in it. Finally, just want to give a shout out to my University of Illinois Fighting Illini. If you noticed in my last video, I was wearing an Illini pullover, and today I'm wearing my Illini colored tie. And the Fighting Illini on New Year's Eve, they beat the South Carolina Gamecocks in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl Probably, I think, largely considered the best bowl of the non-college football playoffs slate. And so my Fighting Illini got to 10 wins for just the 5th time in program history, so I'm pretty proud of them, and wanted to give them a shout out. They are after the Chicago White Sox, they're kind of the second most team that I follow, or the second team that I care about most in terms of following them. After that, it's the Fighting Illini basketball team, and then the Chicago Bears. So my professional teams, the White Sox and the Bears, not doing so hot, but my Fighting Illini on both the football and the basketball fronts are doing pretty well. So if you, like most of the rest of the country, have overlooked the Fighting Illini in recent years, you should pay more attention to them. They're doing pretty well. All right, that's all I have. Thanks for watching, everyone. And with that, collect what you love, flip what you like. Thank you.